Hey guys, this is your first podcast of the year. You were left off today in class talking about workers in the workplace, PowerPoint, and you spoke about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. This is a different picture we have that shows what really went on, where the fire started down here. And we said there's some pretty awful things that went on that day, so we're going to talk today about what workers are going to do to demand some change. So hopefully today in class we had time for you to mention fire safety practices we have today, which a big part of that is going to be workers demanding some changes. So hopefully you have the paper in front of you. Continue the same note guide that you had in class. If not, I guess just take notes somewhere and figure it out tomorrow in school. But workers organize. So ask yourself, what are the three things that workers care about most? Any worker. I don't care what worker they are, what kind of industry. If you think about it, well, of course, getting paid, getting money is one of them, right? Let me show you them. I don't want you to write down the wrong answer. Pretty sure all of those things you might say workers care about could be whittled down into these three options. Hours, meaning like how long is their workday. Their wages, meaning how much money they make. And that can include healthcare as well nowadays. But working conditions, right? Is my arm going to get chopped off or not? You know, is being hurt at work a real consideration I have to worry about or not? Hopefully not as much today, but back then, yeah, that was a big concern. So unions begin to form. People, the workers start to realize, hey, if we get together and stick together, we can really make a difference. So a union, you're supposed to write down organizations that workers formed so they could collectively bargain for better hours, wages, and working conditions. Now I'm going to simplify this a little bit just because we're ninth graders and just we don't need that much detail yet. But let's just assume that factory owners or factory like the management hates unions. And think about it. Why would they enjoy a union being in their factory? Why would Andrew Carnegie, for example, in Pittsburgh with the steel industry, why would he want unions there? That doesn't make sense. Because he's not an evil person necessarily, but he wants to pay his workers as little as he can and make them work as long hours as possible so that his business makes as much money as possible. I'm not saying he wants his workers to suffer, but within reason, pay them as little as possible, make them work as long hours as possible, right? If you were a business owner, you do something similar, I'm sure, to a degree. And to stop workers from joining unions, factory owners would do these kinds of things back then. A lot of these things, I think all of them are illegal now, but this is the kind of messed up things they would do back in, we're talking turn of the century, even 1880s, 1890s. They would first of all require you as a worker, if you're hired, to take an oath promising not to join a union. You had to sign or speak an oath. A lot of the immigrant workers probably couldn't write English, so they had to just speak it. And then they would hire these detectives. The company would hire detectives, go undercover, infiltrate the union, the organizers, and say, hey guys, what's going on? Oh man, really tough shift today we had, 8-hour, 12-hour shift. I'm exhausted. What about you guys? Oh yeah, well, organizing a meeting Saturday night down at the corner bar. We're going to figure out organizing some kind of strike or gathering. Oh, really? And he would report back to the bosses and give names of who's doing what, and you might lose your job. And then lastly, they would fire union members if they suspected you of being in a union or trying to start a union, even worse. And they put you on this blacklist, which I have a picture of a scroll here just to show you. A blacklist was just like this magical list of names that these owners, factory owners, would have, and they would share with each other. And if your name's on that list, that means they suspect you're starting a union, therefore you're the enemy, and they're not going to hire you ever again, and they're going to make sure that their other rich friends, right? Rich people know other rich people. They're going to make sure they never hire you as well. So you might not ever get a job in Pittsburgh. And if they have rich friends that are owning companies in other cities, they're going to spread the word there as well to make your life miserable, therefore to discourage as many people as possible from joining the unions. So sometimes unions go to fight back. The big thing, of course, is to go on strike. We've all heard about that kind of thing. When workers walk off the job and hold picket signs, that kind of thing. This has been around for a long time. To stop unions from striking, though, businesses would hire scabs. That's what this nasty name. They're strike breakers, people that would go to work, instead of these workers that are out front picketing, but a scab. Just like when you pick a gross, oozing scab off your elbow, and it's nasty, and there's blood and gut and all that gross. Well, that same association of a horrible, disgusting thing. That's why people chose that word to describe strike breakers, because they're people that are the owners are saying to themselves, or saying to the workers, "Oh, that's fine, workers. You have fun picketing out front. I'm going to hire all these new immigrants off to the side who are dying to find a job because their families need them to work so they can feed them. And yeah, hey guys, go in the door around the back of the factory. Sure, I'll let you in. I'll show you how to, yeah. Now the downside is it's going to take a while to train them. If you're a skilled worker, it's going to take a while to train the scabs to do your job. But sooner or later it'll pay off. So let's talk about the first unions. We're going to talk about two of them. The first major one, nationwide, is called the Knights of Labor. Knights with a K, as in knights in shining armor. That's how I remember it, by the way, because Knights in shining armor. This was the first one. I remember it because Knights in shining armor happened a long time ago in the Middle Ages. But what they did with their deal was they admitted men, women, African Americans, immigrants, and unskilled workers. Now this is important. We're going to come back to this in a second. Okay, so they admitted pretty much everyone. And given the time period, I'm actually kind of shocked that they admitted women and African Americans and immigrants for that matter, given just the people's mentality of that day. Now things were going okay. They were picking up membership until the infamous Haymarket Square riot in Chicago. This is a picture of Haymarket Square. It's just, in Pittsburgh, it'd be like saying Market Square or in different spots downtown, doesn't matter. Station Square. But it's just a gathering spot in the city. And there's this big union rally one day because the day before the Chicago police had shot and killed a union member. So they have this big rally, and then members of the Knights of Labor, for some reason, decided it was a great idea to throw a bomb into the crowd, into the oncoming police. 200 policemen were marching towards them, so someone throws a bomb. No one really knows who it was. Kills 7 policemen, and a couple of police open fire, of course, rightfully so, and they kill a couple of the protesters as well. And so what had been a peaceful labor rally, peaceful, not a strike, but a labor rally, turned into this horrible, infamous day. So in that day alone turned public opinion against the Knights of Labor, and actually unions as a whole. It took a while for it to get back. Here's a picture. You see this guy's singing a song. These guys are doing push-ups here. This guy's doing push-ups, I guess. I'm not sure what these guys are doing here. But no, I'm just kidding. This is, of course, a picture of the mob, so not a pretty sight. A decade and a half goes by, a couple years before a second major union forms. Knights of Labor, forget it. You're out of luck. The AFL, American Federation of Labor, formed by Seymour Gompers in 1886. And that's a pretty cool name. I don't know if it's as cool as Jorgis Rutgers, or as cool as Cornelius Vanderbilt or Gustavus Swift, but it's pretty cool in my list of cool names for the year so far. But anyway, his union replaced the Knights of Labor as the leading union for the country, admitted skilled workers only. And that's so important. Remember, up here we said they admitted all kinds of groups as well as unskilled workers, but here the AFL is admitting only skilled workers. Why is that important? Why is that a big deal? I want you to think about it. The reason, I believe, is because when you have skilled workers, like people that have worked many years on their trades and they're the only ones that can do it, well, if those skilled workers go on strike, guess what? The factory owners are going to listen to them. They need them. They can't hire scabs to do their jobs for them. They're irreplaceable. Therefore, if these skilled workers go on strike, they're going to listen, and they're going to maybe pay them, or more likely to give them that pay raise they want, or give them whatever conditions they want. So that's the big difference. So about the strikes, we'll talk about just 2 major strikes that went on. There's tons. There's dozens and dozens of strikes at this time period, 1880s, 1890s. The first one is the Pullman strike. George Pullman in Chicago, 1893. George Pullman was a railroad car manufacturer, made these beautiful sleeping cars. If you took a railroad trip across the country or from city to city, you'd sleep overnight and get there in the morning in these beautiful, luxurious railroad cars, like red velvet, beautiful. So times were tough. There was a little recession in 1893. He had to cut his workers' pay by 25%, by a quarter of their wages. But at the same time, the workers lived in these company-owned houses. They're all the same, and they're like on the grounds of the company. That actually was pretty common at the time period. But he refused to lower the rents. So he cut their pay, but he didn't lower their rent for their company-owned houses. And they bought food at the company-owned grocery stores, etc., etc. And so people were outraged. Now his argument is, well, times are tough, right? I'm losing money. But the workers say this isn't fair. You have plenty of money, so what are you going to do about it? So they went on this huge strike, lasted for weeks and months, and eventually set off this chain reaction of strikes from coast to coast. People like, yeah, you know what? You're right, workers. They stood up with them. Federal troops end up having to be called in. Now in class, I'm going to read with you a view of the Pullman strike. This reading where you get to hear his point of view. He gets grilled by Congress. They investigate and they want to know what the deal is. But it's just an example of how nasty things could be. Back in these days, people died during strikes. There was bloodshed. It was very serious. It's do or die. If you're not getting paid when you're on strike, and so you had an incentive to make sure it went well for you. But the second example is a Homestead steel strike. Homestead, as in Pittsburgh, as in where you go swimming at Sandcastle Park, right? That's Homestead. Or go shopping at all the shops and the movie theater and stuff. That's Homestead. Huge mill. The smokestacks are still there. I hope you have heard that before and recognize that. But the Homestead steel strike, 1892. Andrew Carnegie, same thing with wages. The workers demanded higher wages. He said, no, that's okay. We don't want to pay you higher wages. And he actually went on vacation to a castle that he rented for the summer in Scotland. And as he's away, he put his right-hand man, Henry Clay Frick, in charge. Henry Clay Frick, as in Frick Park, Frick Mansion in Pittsburgh, the area. So this guy called the shots, brutal union hater, and he stood his ground, and the strike went on for something like 5 or 6 months. During the winter, the strikers ran out of money, but before all that, but the first day though, they called in the Pinkertons. These guards came in on the shores, and this huge battle ensued, and dozens of people died. This was serious business back then. So we'll talk more about that in class as well. But by 1900, only 18% of all the non-farm workers were in a union. Only 18%. So I'm saying that unions are growing big time, but still it's a pretty small percentage. The heyday of unions is going to be the 1930s, 1940s, and even maybe the 50s. So that's all we have for now. Make sure, please, right now, back on Blackboard, click on the quiz. Take the quiz. It's only 5 or 6 questions long. Take the quiz that says workers in the workplace quiz based on this podcast. Use your notes, get the answers right, and I will see you tomorrow in class.